Hello and welcome back to the fourth episode of EasyFix Appliance LTD, appliance repair company. We service Vancouver, the surrounding cities, and also Victoria and Calgary as well, actually. Anyway, today I wanted to share 3 tips about some of the most common issues clients have, which are avoidable by a little bit of care, and potentially some people just don't know. And actually, not potentially, actually a lot of people don't know, and it's fairly surprising to me. I don't get it, really how they are not aware of some of the most common things they have to do with their appliances. While, I learned that from talking to clients, which the reason it's so surprising, just not to go on a rant, but just to kind of give the idea that why it's so surprising to me is so you own a home, and most people own homes for many years. And so a lot of times that I come to a client and I work on a fridge and I see, for example, the condenser coils extremely dirty and clogged, and this is a maintenance that has to be done every 6 to 12 months. And majority of clients, they say oh, I never knew I have to do it. And this is extremely surprising to me, because you must have some appliance technicians in your place at some point in the last a year or 5 years or 10 years, and you never learned from them, or they never mentioned. So I don't know, it's just a little bit surprising, and especially because the risk of not cleaning them, it can cause such expensive repairs. And so I guess we'll just go straight to the first one, and that's just cleaning the condenser coils of your fridge every 6 to 12 months. Extremely important. The cooling system, the compressor, the whole sealed system in your fridge, it has to breathe. It is very important because it's moving heat. And so if the condenser coils are clogged with dirt and dust and lint and whatever builds up over there, and it cannot circulate properly and move the heat away, it gets extremely hot. The whole system gets very hot. And you can see it sometime with some yellow discoloration on the fridge body, usually around the seals or in the line between the fridge and the freezer. You can see it on the gaskets. You can start paying attention that the temperature is not as it should be, or just while standing next to the fridge, it feels a little bit too hot than normal. And the problem it can cause are, significant, because if your compressor runs overly hot, the oil inside can evaporate, and so it can work with less oil than it should, less oil than it's designed to work with. And so that system that overheats obviously can cause problem to the pipe, can cause a refrigerant leak, it can cause other parts to damage. And so there's many potential problems that you can experience, your fridge can experience, just by not doing something that takes depends on the fridge, but let's say between 10 and 20 minutes per fridge, right? So very important, and that's just a reminder, and hopefully you do that, because those expensive can be those repairs can be very expensive. If your compressor gone or you have a leak, those repairs can easily go over $1,000 and up to $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, depending on the brand of the fridge and how bad the situation is. So that's the first one. The second one, extremely common as well, front load washer door boot gaskets that get very moldy. In the climate we have here in Vancouver and the surrounding cities, it is very humid, and so a lot of water that's been left on the washer in the gasket, which there is water left there, especially if you close the washer doors after you finish every cycle and it doesn't breathe, it just stays there and eventually it builds molds. And so a lot of people we tried, there's different products to try to clean it, to try to kind of reverse the damage and reverse that buildup of a mold. But I think I never heard of a solution that is actually worked and last for a long time. And so usually people end up or being kind of forced to replace those gaskets, and those gaskets are not cheap. This repair can go anywhere between 300 and 500 depending on the washer and the cost of the part. And so the way to avoid that is by leaving the door open for, I always say, at least 3 hours after the cycle is over, but I personally leave it overnight. The door open. You can also open the drawer for where you put soap, so it has a good air circulation, and so it can breathe. And when it breathes, it's like the water is not like standing and building mold, it's kind of evaporating with the air. And also, like, additionally, sometime on some washers, I would just recommend at the end of the cycle, just take a towel and gently wipe it by yourself. Because what happens sometimes, if there is like a little drain, a little like pipe that the water is supposed to drain to the drum from the gasket, and if it's get clogged with hair, with stuff, that you also want to make sure it's not getting clogged, then the water kind of stays there for longer, and there is a limit to how much the air circulation can evaporate the water. And so if there is too much, eventually will build mold anyway. So sometimes I'll just recommend to keep an eye on it. If you see some dirt, some clogging the drain hole in the gasket, just kind of clean it quickly, gently, making sure not using anything sharp. And then also potentially just wipe the whole thing gently without forcing, without potentially causing any breakages in the gasket. And then just leave it for still to breathe for like 3 hours at least, or more if you can, and then you will not have a problem. And then the last one that is fairly common, it's okay to use that function. So talking about ovens, electrical ovens or gas ovens, a lot of people use the self-clean option. And this option is great, it's amazing when you use it, but the way you can kind of, I say to my clients all the time, you can use it, but I will say you can use it especially with confidence at the beginning when the unit is fairly new, because when units get older, I do not recommend longer using it. You can, but it's just going to potentially or very likely to cause some parts to fail, because you can look at every part on an appliance like it has a life battery, like we have on our cell phone. And I use an iPhone and I have the option to put a percentage on my battery, so it shows me what percentage life my battery has left. And so every part in an appliance have some sort of a life battery. And so whenever the parts get older, they also get weaker. And so when they get to their like 30% left or 40% left, if you use a self-clean option, which basically the reason it causes problems, because it goes to like the maximum temperature this unit goes. It goes to a very, very hot temperature, and that's why you usually locked the door. And that's one of the parts that commonly fail, the door locks, because they lock in the door, and then when it gets to this extremely hot temperature, it goes to like 450 or even 500, I think around like 450 or fairly hot. So parts basically starts to fail when you put pressure on them. When they are already weak, they are inclined to fail more often. And so I do not recommend using that. If you can find a solution to clean manually inside, that will be ideal if you want to avoid some repairs. And so sure, you can use it at the beginning, in the first few years, but when the unit becomes 2, 3, 4 years old, if you want to get more out of it and spend less on repairs, then I would recommend not doing it with the option of the unit. but you would do it manually. If you want to take the risk, then you're potentially going to have some parts fail. And so I think that is the 3 appliances that I want to give you some value here today, so you can save money, and hopefully it's been useful for you. If you do need some help, you can reach out to us. Our website is easyfixrepair.ca. Phone number is 778-723-2456. And our email address is info@easyfixrepair.ca. For any questions or service you might need, feel free to reach out to us. And I will talk to you at the next time.